What are you doing for Thanksgiving? You're visiting them? Yeah. That's nice. And we should all be together.
Yeah, we're not all going to be together, but my son and his wife will be together.
It's kind of like your skirt. Like it's like a little bit orangey in the light. It's almost better every other year. I got my color done. It's like I think the Atlanta Journal wants me to do that.
Oh, really? Their husband's parents are here.
I just told him it's like perfect. Like colors.
Yeah, it's not the same thing.
It's like when they go everybody else. I got that. It's more fun than people. I wouldn't go like back. I also have only fatigue and they'll be like, we did go like I think but I also knew everyone I'd be like, what do you do?
You sit there and then you sit there and you sit
They're
there
not
all day.
yeah. I was literally like, oh damn, I never brought that. I'll never make like a time. Yeah, it's literally Thanksgiving. I mean, that makes sense. No one I was with is like so they don't like they're all like within each other.
Do what you love. To do what?
Wait, do you think that comes from the same
High degree of expectations.
That's my favorite.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he's just.
So you went there, got to learn.
The problem is it also
So you can just stay nearby.
ironically,
You like turkey?
The Marriott.
Come to my house.
They really did
It's Italian.
it's one of my favorite chicken.
Are you really?
I'll have Christmas at the Marriott.
That's what you do too. You like your
Getting meatballs.
Don't get crazy. No, it's just
Go bring it back.
It's my like perfect
You see him speaking. I want to sign with that. I'm sorry. It doesn't speak about his father telling him to get ready, and it's he has it down.
and it's like you have to
You want to try to see?
No.
Okay. I literally got here 2 seconds before you. Yeah. I was just here, so I just took it.
No, but I use some, like, people get mad if I see some.
You don't get mad, you can eat.
That's very true.
I take your seats.
If I come in and stuff, I'm just sitting there.
I would clear it.
He gets really bad.
It's just real. Absolutely.
No, that's it.
And then.
I kept saying,
Not so much.
Right, babe. Not the capital. Because it's the same thing. Next to the news.
That's why I'm like, check your remote.
And there's like a group of people, nothing really
I remember when Beth left. One member of leadership. I think.
I also don't like.
what? What are you doing?
post a video and I just bueno, post a video.
Oh. Didn't you have the tree here? I thought it was today.
said that on TV.
The most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
That's really dumb. Can we get two sources? I'm
Yeah,
talking
you're coming over to second source.
Hey, honey, need help? Come here. I need a second source.
Say it on the phone and you from everything I just told you.
I bought the camera used and came with it, and I never use it.
I have they have a new version of it.
Oh.
And I have to like literally down it to get the camera out. The whole thing. Oh, Jesus. I thought like the old one has better reviews.
I mean, I like it, but I don't really use it.
It's just nice to be able to take a look at the camera.
Yeah. So my guy says the elections are happening now, so I think presidential elections. I have access to everything.
Let me check my latest here.
What time are they gonna set? 12:30. I could also.
What I hear,
I tried doing the image of the horizon one. I got it when Archie America.
yeah, I didn't.
I picked it up. The goal is to have a digital seas.
Anyway, I'm up to this.
said, an extra 50 bucks a week, I'll take care of it. No, you guys are all working. 20 years of fiasco. Whenever got the oil change, the transmission fell out. I was at the Fed, doing, I don't know, Greenspan or Yellow or something else. It was like $500 worth of tickets in the car, because it was out of registration, and it was out of something else. And she's like, why don't you all these two? By the time that thing had run its course, it was too unsafe to drive, and they had to tow it out of the parking garage where the car was. It was such a wreck. Oh, gosh. It was supposed to be treated like an ambulance or cop car, always near the tank. We have a BP station a block up the street, and I come back, and I knew he had it the day before. There was always an excuse, dude, the BP station is 24 hours. Now, the kids can't get out of it. And then he'd leave his McDonald's lunch with the stinky onions, and it smelled like onion. He was a cheese slicer at the time. Oh, it was so disgusting. We had like, remember the Beltway sniper? 7 days a week. Driving around. 7 days a week. No memory of it?
That's why I went with it. I went to Columbia. That's when I was 16 at the other thing. They went into the green room. Right. So much. But you're gonna have something that takes up. Not do it. See how old this is.
Nice. Right? Isn't that good? I'm setting that to 12 feet right now. Oh, it's, my buddy there, I've known him for 40 years. Oh. Sent me this, yes, yeah. This was, he's got some early warning app for incoming rockets. That was from yesterday. It's like all of everything north of Tel Aviv. Yeah, a couple landed near his apartment. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Coming out.
Heads up.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. We're looking forward to being back here for another productive week before we break for Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone on the front end. House Republicans are continuing our preparations for the 119th Congress so we can hit the ground running and leverage our unified Republican leadership in the White House, House, and Senate to deliver for the American people in meaningful ways. We're also staying busy during this lame duck period, advancing important legislation, including two critical bills that I'll briefly highlight here. My friend and colleague on the Ways and Means Committee, Claudia Tenney from New York, she is pushing the Stop the Terror Financing and Tax Penalty on American Hostages Act, and we'll put that on the floor this week. This is a common sense piece of legislation that will prevent the IRS from charging late fees and penalties on American citizens who are wrongfully detained or held hostage abroad. Again, a common sense piece of legislation. This bill also revokes the tax-exempt status of American nonprofits that provide financial or material support to terrorist groups like Hamas. This bill addresses critical gaps in our tax laws to hold organizations and support terrorism accountable and provide relief for hostages who are just trying to get home and reunite with their families. Second bill we're also bringing to the floor, Congressman Russ Fulcher's Committing Leases for Energy Access Now Act, the CLEAN Act, which will require the Department of Interior to increase the frequency of geothermal lease sales from every 2 years to every year, hold replacement sales if necessary, and create decision deadlines for permit applications for better transparency and communication. We know that diverse and reliable energy sources are critical to our national security and American energy dominance, and geothermal energy provides clean baseload power that utilizes the resources that we have here in the United States. Again, two common sense pieces of legislation that I'm sure you all are chomping at the bit to talk about extensively today in this press conference. Looking forward to supporting both these measures, and I will now turn the time over to our whip, Mr. Tom Emmer.
Thank you, Blake. 18 minutes. This is how long Laken Riley fought for her life until she was ultimately murdered because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democrats' open border agenda. Police found Laken with her skull bashed in by a rock and her body exposed. Yesterday, we learned that Democrats' failed policies resulted in Laken's alleged killer receiving a taxpayer-funded flight from New York City to Georgia. This is a slap in the face to the entire Riley family, a slap in the face to every law-abiding, tax-paying American citizen, and it confirms what we've known all along. Laken Riley's murder was entirely preventable, and the Biden-Harris administration is responsible. Unfortunately, her story is not an isolated one. There's 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungary. There's 37-year-old Rachel Morin, and these are just the cases we know about. All of these young women were brutally murdered because the White House prioritized illegal immigrants over their safety. Thankfully, on November 5th, voters said enough is enough. They elected a Republican president, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate with a mandate to get this crisis under control and end the Democrats' open borders insanity once and for all. And that's exactly what we're going to do. With President Trump leading the way, our Republican trifecta is ready to hit the ground running on day one to secure our borders and ensure criminal illegal aliens are removed from our communities. January 20th cannot come fast enough. And now our Majority Leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Whip. Blake laid out the bills that we're bringing to the floor again this week. Yesterday, we passed a really important bill for our nation's veterans by Juan Ciscomani, named after Elizabeth Dole. It was good to get that bill passed overwhelmingly out of the House, now over to the Senate. Going to talk a little bit about the planning that we're doing for January. You know, we just got an overwhelming mandate from the voters of this country to, number one, reject the far-left policies that we've seen from the Biden-Harris administration the last 4 years, but especially to put the country on a different path. And we laid out during the campaign what that path would be, but we're now planning for the policies that we would put in place as a Republican majority with a Republican Senate and the White House and under President Trump to get our country back on track, to focus on lowering costs for family at the grocery store, at the gas pump, their energy bills, to secure America's border. So once again, I assembled all the committee chairs last week to go through what we will be doing in budget reconciliation starting in January. This is going to be a busy process next year. We laid out a very aggressive first 100-day agenda, addressing the things that would get our country moving again, that would focus on lowering costs. And getting our economy moving, making sure there is no tax hike next year. You know, if Congress takes no action, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act under President Trump, many of those provisions from 2017 would expire, leading to a large tax hike on families. We are going to work to prevent that from happening. So ultimately, if you look at what we're focused on right now, is being ready day one, starting in January, when we get not only that mandate, but that opportunity to get this country back on track with unified government in Washington to start addressing the problems that were created by President Biden and Vice President Harris. We are ready for that moment. We're already making plans, working with President Trump to get our country moving again quickly so that families can finally get relief, the relief that they not only deserve, but the relief that they voted for just a few weeks ago. And so leading that charge while he's not hanging out with Kid Rock at UFC fights and Jelly Roll is our Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Thanks a lot. Good morning to everybody. Glad to see such a full crowd. Every seat taken, almost standing room only in here. It is almost like a UFC fight in Madison Square Garden, almost as fun. All seriousness, we had a great weekend at Mar-a-Lago with President-elect Trump, talking about the legislative plan, talking about the agenda going forward, lots of substantive discussions. I met with President Trump and President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance and their senior policy leaders, and there's no daylight between their agenda and what they envision and what we envision for the House. And in order to accomplish all of that, the president needs an aggressive cabinet, and he has put forward some extraordinary nominees. I've met with many of them individually since those announcements have been made, and we're excited about the days ahead. House Republicans are committed to working with President Trump and his nominees and the administration as we prepare for what will be a breakneck 119th Congress. The agenda will be fast-paced. The first 100 days will be very full, as we have a lot to fix. And as I've said many times, I believe President Trump could be the most consequential president of the modern era because we have to fix everything. And by extension, Congress can be as well. And the incoming administration is going to be filled with great men and women, and we trust and hope that Senate Republicans will, and the whole Senate will perform their constitutional responsibility to advise and consent on President Trump's nominees and to do that in a speedy, expeditious manner. And as I said, we've been working with the Senate as well on this big plan we have to hit the ground running in January. We laid out this morning for the House Republicans what Leader Scalise was referring to, and that is kind of the overarching points, the overarching pieces of the reconciliation package. And in quick summary, we want to grow our economy and defeat inflation. We want to restore the border. We want to restore America's energy dominance, provide educational freedom, and dismantle the deep state. Now, lots of course, details on each of those categories, but we're working all that out together in a bicameral fashion with Senate Republicans, House Republicans working together, and of course, coordinating with the new Trump administration. In the meantime, we have some items we have to go through for the remainder of this year, as you all know. We have a disaster relief package that's been presented by the Biden administration, their request. And even before, I want to point out, even before Hurricanes Milton and Helene hit shore, House Republicans ensured that appropriate emergency funds would be provided to FEMA, as we did in that last funding package, as you know. And now that we're back in session, we're going to continue to provide for the American people with the resources that are desperately needed. So I saw firsthand. I went to the sites of the devastation. I went to Florida, where Helene made landfall, and looked at the devastation there, all the way inland, even to the agricultural areas. And then I spent a lot of time in western North Carolina, where it looks like a bomb went off in most of those areas there. So these communities can be rebuilt responsibly, and Congress has a role to play. We'll be looking at all that. On the floor this week, you heard a quick summary about some of these steps we're taking towards beginning to restore America's energy dominance. And tomorrow we'll pass the Clean Act to increase our domestic power production and strengthen America's energy security. We're going to pursue an all of the above energy policy, and geothermal is a big part of that. It's just beneath our feet, and in the Mountain West states, this is a big thing. We're not going to waste it like the Biden administration did. We're going to use all the precious resources that we've been blessed as a nation to have. We'll also vote on the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act this week. common sense legislation, as you heard. It prevents the IRS from charging late fees on Americans who are held hostage or wrongfully detained abroad. This is an obvious thing that everybody should be in support of. We're going to make sure that we follow common sense legislation and these principles along the way, and House Republicans will fix that error this week and many, many errors in the days to come. So we're excited about that. I'll just say one quick note, and I'll take your questions. We just had a great gathering of all the House Republicans, as we do each week, and we had many of our member-elects, new members who will be coming in, Republican members in the 119th Congress. It's an extraordinary group. They've been on the Hill for the last week or so, having their orientation. I'm really proud of this group. They have an extraordinary set of skills and expertise they bring to the table and life experiences. Pound for pound, I think it's one of the strongest classes maybe that's ever come in for our party, and I'm really excited about what they'll contribute. And I told them and all of our members this morning as we approach Thanksgiving, it's an appropriate time for all of us to be thankful, not just for the immediate blessings of our family and friends and the things that we enjoy, but for this great country. And the fact that I believe that we've been given the great blessing of an opportunity to save America. And that's what we intend to do, and we have a very deliberate agenda to pursue to make sure that happens. So we're looking forward to getting to work. Yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker, is freshman-elect Sarah McBride a man or a woman?
Look, I'm not going to get into this. We welcome all new members with open arms who are duly elected representatives of the people. I believe it's a command that we treat all persons with dignity and respect, and we will. And I'm not going to engage in silly debates about this. There's a concern about the uses of restroom facilities and locker rooms and all that. This is an issue that Congress has never had to address before, and we're going to do that in a deliberate fashion with member consensus on it, and we will accommodate the needs of every single person. That's all I'm going to say about that. Yes, sir.
Do you plan on bringing Nancy Mace's transgender bill and putting that into the rules package?
I'm not going to address the plans on any of that. I just told you what I'm going to say about the issue. I'm not going to engage in this. We don't look down upon anyone. We treat everybody with dignity and respect. That's a principle that I've pursued my whole life, and we will take care of this, issue of first impression for Congress, as we will any other thing. We'll provide appropriate accommodation for every member of Congress. Yes, ma'am.
Speaker, I want to ask you, so you've repeatedly said that one way you want to try to invigorate the U.S. economy is through confronting China. So broadly, how do you envision confronting China economically, and do you support specifically a bill like Congressman John Molinar's that was introduced last week that would strip China of the preferred nation status?
Yeah, look, I think we have to be very aggressive on China, and I won't address specific measures, but we had a select committee on the Chinese Communist Party and the extraordinary threat that they are, not just to America, but to freedom around the world. I think it's a very, very serious issue. I mean, next to the national debt, I think it's our greatest threat to national security, and we have to address it appropriately. I expect that President Trump will be very aggressive on that matter. You've heard him talk about it for quite some time, and in fact, he started talking about that in 2015 before anyone else ever really was paying attention to it and recognizing the menace that China has become. So, look, you're gonna have a very aggressive approach to this in the new Congress. Republicans are very serious about this, very sober-minded. We have lots of legislation, lots of measures that we'd like to pursue, but I'm not going to get in front of that and tell you what all that will be yet. Just know that we will take this very seriously. I think we've got to address it. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
You left the doors open for Lisa's appointment, but you said, I hope that the Senate is going to do a job. My question, will the confirmation process be the ultimate test of the Republican Party unity or bipartisan cooperation?
Well, look, it all remains to be seen. I mean, I genuinely believe that the Senate should do its job. I think it's an important principle for us to maintain that an incoming president gets to select their own team. I think that's an important principle. The advise and consent responsibility is given to the Senate in the Constitution. They need to take that seriously, and they will. They'll properly vet nominees, and that process will play out. But look, I'll just say this about a number of the nominees that have been appointed. I think President Trump is looking for persons who will shake up the status quo. And we got a mandate in this election cycle to do that. The status quo is not working for the American people. And so these are persons who will go in and bring real reform, a significant reform to the agencies that they lead. If you poll the American people, they will agree that that is an appropriate objective. And so I think that the Senate should do its job and, sure, take a look, do a deep dive, vet these persons, but move them along for confirmation so that the president has the team in place to do what the American people have elected him to do. And we're going to support that effort. So thank you. Appreciate it. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I didn't see that on the board either.
I think that was more of a postponement, maybe. Okay. Just reflective of